this show, sponsored by Aquarius Home Services. We appreciate them and the Aquarius Home Services studio. Also, 10K Construction, Minnesota Masonic Charities, and Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. Welcome to Fantasy Huddle. I'm Randy Shaver along with Kevin Gorg. This is episode 2. We started this podcast last week. We're getting closer and closer to the start of the regular season in the NFL. We want to let you know that we've got a cheat sheet that's on our website at talknorth.com. If these picks don't work out for you, that's Kevin's fault. It's not mine.
You can blame me.
But most of these picks are picks that we kind of did our own lists, and then it was meshed together, and that's kind of what came out of it for our cheat sheet. So,
and we're different than a lot of others. If I've compared notes, and I certainly have, we've got some different opinions. And our intern Will Anderson put this together, took both of our sheets, which we did separately, didn't communicate anything, Randy. And so it's a unique look. And I think when you're doing drafts and when you're getting together to do this, you want to bounce some of your opinions off each other. You want to have a meshing of the ones that you trust out there. And we're hoping you use ours, and you can go to talknorth.com and download that list.
This is the hot season right now for fantasy football because everybody is knee deep in drafts and trying to figure out, whatever your rules are in those drafts, figuring out which players to take. I think it's a fun time to experiment a little bit. If you've got the ability to do a couple of drafts different ways, just to kind of get the feel for zero running back. What does that look like for you? Pushing the quarterback back to round 10. What does that feel like for you? Because I think some people, I know for me personally, when I do a draft, I get really super nervous if I don't get a good star running back in the first couple of picks. It makes me nervous. And I know some people, they kind of get into a habit, and it's hard to break the habit.
It is, and I think a lot of times people get stuck with some of those habits, and no matter where they're picking, they go back to what they've done in the past. And to your point, a lot of people are most comfortable taking that big running back early. Well, if you fall in the draft at a certain place, you sometimes have to pivot. You have to be able to react within that draft. And I think the biggest thing I can recommend is doing some mock drafts. A lot of the websites like ESPN have that, just to get a feel for different positions in the draft. Because if you come in very myopic with what you want to do, and you've got your mindset on doing it one way, you're going to end up in a lot of these drafts on the wrong side of a lot of these players.
And obviously the waiver wire is a huge thing.
Huge.
And we'll talk about that later on in some other shows, because that's where you can kind of make gains after you've made mistakes in your draft.
The draft is a small piece. It's a big part,
small piece,
but it's really a small piece. When you look back at teams that win fantasy championships, the two areas where they excel are the waiver wire and trades within the season. And if you don't have that ability, you're going to struggle, because what looks great right now is going to look completely different in 6 weeks.
All right, let's talk about preseason games that were played last week and just some general thoughts. And I've got a few of them, and we'll take a look at them. I thought the composure by the Vikings quarterbacks stood out to me. Watch that preseason game, which is rare for me to watch an entire preseason game for the Vikings.
I'm with you.
But McCarthy, I thought, looked super poised in that 13-play drive to open the Vikings first quarter. Howell, I thought, played well. I thought Brosmer looked really good. It's going to be an interesting battle for that third spot on the Vikings quarterbacks. I thought Travis Hunter and his debut, both at the defensive back and the receiver position, I think he only had 2 catches, but just the fact that he played both positions at a high level, I thought was great. And then my last comment, and then I'll let you jump in, Jackson Dart. For those that are looking at that Giants quarterback situation and wondering, how's that going to play out? I think early on it's Russell Wilson, but that may not be the way it's going to end up in New York. And not saying the first game is a telltale sign of what Jackson Dart can do, but he was 12 for 19, 154 yards and a touchdown. And from everything that I read, looked super composed in playing in his first game. Your thoughts on my picks for the preseason?
Well, I think the biggest one involves the Vikings, because regardless of where we're doing the show from, and we are in Minnesota here, but so many big-time fantasy players are involved in the development of that position for the Vikings. And we hope it's J.J. McCarthy. It likely, if he stays healthy, will be. But you think about Justin Jefferson, Addison after he gets done with suspension, Hawkinson, the two running backs who are both fantasy viable, in my opinion. Jordan Mason's a player that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. He will be the goal line guy. I mean, it's a fact that if you're looking at PPR, Aaron Jones is still going to catch 3 or 4 balls a game for sure. Inside the 10-yard line, it is going to be Jordan Mason. And I think that's something to watch as training camp and preseason finishes up and we get into the real games. But McCarthy looked the part. Their offensive line, which has been retooled, looked the part, which obviously plays into the success of all those players. And then I look at, again, throughout the league, I continue to watch some of those young rookies. You mentioned Travis Hunter, the kid in New England with the big splash, 100-yard kickoff return, and then you get him in the passing game, catching nearly a 20-yarder out of the backfield. Ramondre Stevenson is still going to be the guy, but there are a lot of backfields where it's going to be 1 and 1A, and here in Minnesota and New England too. And I think that's something to watch as these young players continue to splash.
So anybody else in the preseason week 1 stand out to you that you thought, I mean, nobody's going to make or break your fantasy team in week 1 of preseason, but does something jump out at you?
Justin Fields. And this is a guy I'm buying in on. And it's a player that when you play fantasy football, you're not looking at, are they a great NFL player at their position? I don't think Justin Fields is a great NFL quarterback. I think he's an excellent, excellent fantasy option. And in Green Bay, in the time he was in there, and that's another game I watched that I wouldn't normally watch because I've got a couple of shares of this guy. I saw exactly what I needed to see.
What were you looking for?
I'm looking for him to be given the green light in the red zone to make plays with his feet. And he did that. He had a 13-yard touchdown run. He looked comfortable doing so. He looks fresh. He looks healthy. And they're going to let him be who he is. Coaches in the past have tried to turn him into a pocket passer. That is not who Justin Fields is. He is a guy that can run. And when you get a quarterback that can run, and look at the top of most of your draft boards at the quarterback position, the guys that score the big fantasy points, like Josh Allen, like Lamar, like Jaden, are quarterbacks that can use their feet because it's almost like having a player and a half. You get a quarterback, and oh, by the way, you get a running back.
How about just in general, was there, like the Bengals played their starters? I mean,
their defense shocked me with how bad they were. They played their ones against the Eagles, 2s and 3s, and they could not stop them. And I think that's awesome if you're in on Bengals this year because every game
they're going to be behind again.
Yes, this is exactly what I wanted to see because I've got shares of Joe Burrow. I've got T. Higgins.
You're cheering for the Bengals defense to be awful. I want
their defense to be horrible because it's going to be a pinball machine and they're going to be forced to put the ball. And I'm all over Chase Brown. Like I'm all over this guy. And so I want the Bengals.
You can't stop talking about it.
I mean, we're going to get to our draft, but I love that the Bengals defense is exactly what we thought it was.
Okay, so this is week 2 coming up this week. Again, teams are going to set their starters. Some will play, some will not. New England's in town to face the Vikings.
Pretty cool.
We'll get maybe Drake May. I'm not sure what the status is, if he'll play or not. I know, that I am very cool on him. I'm not jumping into my drafts trying to take Drake May. What's your gut feeling about Drake May?
I think he's super talented, but again, I go back to what I just said a few minutes ago. I mean, when you're playing fantasy football, to me, you're not trying to pick the best player at their position. You're trying to pick the best player that has the best opportunity to put up fantasy points. And with Drake May, I'm with you. The strength of their team probably isn't going to be their passing game. I mean, they brought in Stephon Diggs, and to me, that's a make or break type of guy that can be a real handful for quarterbacks. I mean, think of how established Josh Allen is and has been in this league for years. And he really struggled dealing with every single time they come to the sidelines after a series. Here's Stephon Diggs in my face. He's an established veteran player. How is this going to play out in New England with a kid like Drake May that's still learning, that's in his second year? Like, I worry about that dynamic, and I worry about how many points they're going to be able to score. So even though I think he's a very talented kid, I don't know if this situation is going to be one that I want to buy into, and I haven't yet.
I think I'm one of those guys that I'm going to wait and see how it plays out.
For sure.
I will draft him if I'm in the position to take him as my backup.
For sure.
But I don't think I'm going to invest in him as my regular starting guy.
I don't think you need
to. At least not right now. I could be totally wrong, but it's like J.J. McCarthy. I'm not sold that he's going to be my starter on my fantasy team, but I for sure will try to get him as a backup quarterback
Absolutely.
on my team. All right. So we had a draft here at Talk North. There were 12 teams involved. We thought it would be fun to have our own in-house draft just to kind of get a feel for what people are thinking about as far as positions and players being picked. I'm going to give you kind of what caught my eye in this draft. And there are three things. The really good quarterbacks were taken after round 11 in our draft. McCarthy, Purdy, Love, Fields, Stroud, Caleb Williams, Goff. So if you're like Kevin and you look at, I'm not taking a quarterback until late, at least in this draft, that was the way to go, because I was surprised when I looked back at this, how many of those really good, solid quarterbacks, maybe not great quarterbacks, but solid quarterbacks were still there after round 11. I thought the biggest reach in our draft was Josh Jacobs at the 15th overall pick. And I say that because Neighbors and Jonathan Taylor and Bucky Irving and Collins and McBride were all still there at 15. I would not have taken Jacobs that high. I'm just not
you worry
super
about
high
how
on
much treads off that tire.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good player.
Yep.
But at some point, I mean, this guy's getting to that age at that running back position where you start to wonder about the durability.
And then the last thing, and I'm going to give myself a good mark and a terrible mark. My best play in my draft was the handcuff of Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones. To me, that I know I had a good turn where I picked up a quarterback. I don't even have it right here in front. Jaden Daniels and Jordan and Kittle. I had the 12th pick.
Oh yeah,
which sucks. Totally sucks.
I disagree. I like being at the bottom of the first.
I had a good turn from 3 to 4 to get Daniels and Kittle. But I thought my best play was the handcuff of Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones. I thought my worst play was taking Rashad Bateman in round 12 when Stroud and Judkins, who I think eventually will get out on the field for Cleveland, and Brenton Strange were still there. And it was so bad that I dropped Bateman this week and dumped his butt because I don't know what I was thinking at that pick. So those were my reactions, what caught my eye in our Talk North draft. What caught your eye?
Well, we got to pick on some of our colleagues, and we certainly appreciate them joining us. But Lavelli Neal III, I'm going to get after the Bear Down team. He takes 3 Chicago Bears. Now, I'm sorry, and I get that you want to have a part of your favorite team. I'm all in on Cortland Sutton. I'm a Bronco guy. But he takes Swift, who I'm a little iffy on, Loveland, the tight end, who I think has a ton of upside, but Cole Kmet's still there. And then he takes Luther Burden III. You're not going to play 3 Bears. I'm sorry. At least you can, but you're not going to win at any point with multiple Bears in your lineup. So,
did he think this was an empire draft or a dynasty draft where maybe he can hold on to those guys for like 3-4 years?
I worry. I do worry. And I'm going to give Mark Rosen some high marks, and he might have been nudged by the guy next to him. But if you're drafting out there, if you're going to get Christian McCaffrey, which I think is a wonderful pick, somewhere late in the first, early in the second, I'm all good with it. The one thing you have to do, you have to have Isaac Guerendo. He showed last year when McCaffrey was hurt how talented he can be. You know, in a Kyle Shanahan offense, how much they use that position at all plays, but especially in the red zone. So good job by Rosie handcuffing Christian McCaffrey. And then I'm going to give our young intern Will Anderson some love here as well, because he has a really good running back in Devin Achan. And Achan's another one of those just boomer bust type of guys. But if he gets hurt, the guy you have to have is Jalen Wright. And I made some mistakes in my draft, and I dropped Jalen Wright this week, and it took him about 45 seconds. And the young man was watching the waiver wire, which you have to do in fantasy football. Right. And now he has a handcuff at a very valuable position.
Why
for the
did you
Dolphins.
drop him?
Well, I made other mistakes, and I'm worried. You know, I like the top part of my draft a lot, and I'll get into this. I love Gibbs in Detroit. I got him early. I made a point to get Bucky Irving, a guy you talked about that I thought dropped a little further back than he should have. I'm trying to facilitate in every draft Cortland Sutton. I believe, and again, I'm not always.
You're such a Denver Bronco nut.
I get that.
This has nothing to do with Cortland Sutton's talent.
It actually does. And I'm going to tell you right now, they paid him the big money. I was against all Broncos.
Sometimes that's not a good thing. Sometimes those guys don't perform when they get that.
But we saw enough last year, especially in the second half. Once Bo Nix got comfortable.
I'm giving you grief.
I know you are. But I made some mistakes too. And you know, the McLaurin thing I'm starting to really worry about. And if Terry McLaurin was in camp right now, I wouldn't be one bit worried. He still is not, and not practicing. And my biggest concern, when guys hold out at skill positions like that, and they end up coming back in time maybe for week one, two things happen.
Get hurt.
They get hurt almost every single time in the first month. And the other thing that happens is they're not in the proper condition, and their reps, their looks, and that's really, it's all about opportunity. So I'm starting to really get worried about Terry McLaurin. And when we drafted last week, I thought by now he'd be signed like the big signing in James Cook in Buffalo. That's these hold-ins, they worry me.
Yeah, 4 years, $48 million for James Cook. What was your grade? What did ESPN's website
They gave me a B.
Did they really?
They gave me a B, and I was okay with that because.
My God.
What's wrong with a B?
I got a C.
Really?
I was 11 out of 12.
I
mean,
like your
come
team.
on.
You've got depth at receiver. You've got Jaden at quarterback.
See, I think that thing is rigged. That
You do?
Yeah, that thing where they grade your draft at the end. I play on Real Time Sports on that website.
I like their site.
And at the end, they'll always grade your draft. And I get so ticked off because I think I did okay. And then they give me like a B- or a C. And it's like, you know what? I'm so deep into this, Kevin. Then I go look at the other teams that were ahead of me on that thing. And I look at, and I just trash talk them.
I love that.
I just sit in front of my computer and go, oh, come on. How was that guy's team better than mine?
But remember, you used our cheat sheet, and ours is different.
I did use it for this draft.
And we didn't use ESPN's. And it's funny when you're doing a draft, and we use the ESPN site for our one here at Talk North.
Yeah.
And it gives you the players that they suggest. And a lot of times I was really scrolling down. Like I'll make 3 or 4 picks on this draft where I was like, I'm not listening to them.
Yeah.
So your grade probably gets affected.
That's kind of a dangerous thing when you draft. If you haven't read enough or looked around, they'll give you those suggestions. That's kind of a dangerous thing because if you just go ahead and click it, that's really sometimes not the best pick.
That's why you don't want to get auto-drafted. You don't ever put yourself in a position where you're asleep at the wheel or you're tied up and you'll just trust the website. You end up with a terrible team every single time. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic Home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz.
It is the dog days of summer, and your AC may be feeling it, and summer isn't over yet. So don't let one last heat wave cause a meltdown in your life. No one needs that. Upgrade your furnace and AC system now with 36 months off, 0% financing based on credit approval with the Aquarius Home Services State Fair Special. And doggone it, spend the rest of your summer cool and worry-free. Schedule your free estimate at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. 10K Construction is your one stop for all your general contracting needs, whether interior, exterior, residential, commercial, or multifamily properties. They build relationships with their clients, and that's how they've grown their business through referrals. Plus, they are teaming up with LP SmartSide to become Minnesota's premier siding installer. And they're also partnering with IKO Shingles as well. They've got the best of the best to do the job right. 10K Construction covers both Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, the rumor is they charge a little extra because it's Packer land. I'm not sure about that, but what I am sure about, 10K Construction is the company you want handling all of your general contracting needs. Go to 10kconstruction.com for details.
Hey, Rosie here for Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than my good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they have got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
All right, we're going to do some tiers now for positions. And we chose, obviously, on our cheat sheet, we don't do kickers and defense. If you're in a league for that, you'll have to find that information somewhere else. But we did tiers for quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end. So I'll start. This is my quarterback tier. Obviously, I mean, some of this stuff is so obvious, right? I mean, Jackson, Allen, and Daniels are my tier 1. I think there's a drop off to tier 2. I have Burrows and Hurts there. And then my tier 3, I only have 2, Nix and Mayfield. So, and I wouldn't take Nix or Mayfield until rounds 8 or later. I mean, that's not a lot of quarterbacks. And historically, when you look at fantasy football week after week after week, the quarterback position normally scores more points than any other position on a consistent basis week after week. Yet, we always look at 2 or 3 in the first 2 or 3 rounds and then wait on the others. I see a lot of people will say, why do you wait so long for a quarterback? Because they score the most points. The problem is that the guys that you take in rounds 8, 9, 10, or 11, they'll score a lot of points, and that differential between the top and the bottom is not that much.
It isn't.
But it is at the running back position, the receiver position, and the tight end position. So that's my tier at quarterback. What's your tier?
I think the tier 1 is the most simple of all. You hit the nail on the head with Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Jaden Daniels. I think there is a significant drop off the top 3. And what all 3 have in common, we talked about it earlier, the ability to run the football in. And so my second tier would include just 2 guys, Joe Burrow, because last year, if you look at his raw numbers, he threw for more yards and for more touchdowns than anybody. Doesn't really run it in.
Because their defense is garbage, he's going to do the same thing.
So my second tier would just be 2 guys. It'd be Jalen Hurts in the tush push and Joe Burrow in the bad defense. And then after that, I'm waiting. You know, I love Bo Nix. I'm a Bronco guy, but I don't see a lot of difference in what Bo Nix is going to do compared to Brock Purdy or Matthew Stafford. The only guy in that second tier of guys that I'm a little worried about, we talked about it week 1, is Patrick Mahomes. And I think Patrick Mahomes is so much fun to own, but they don't score enough. And their defense is so good. And I worry about at every key position. Kelsey's slowing down. Rashee Rice has his issues. Their running back position is in shambles. Right. Pacheco's a shadow of himself. So I'm avoiding Patrick Mahomes. I would almost put him in that tier 3, which gets us down
later,
way towards the bottom. Yeah. I mean, it's
which is really kind of hard to think or weird to think about because he's been so good for so long that he's not even in.
He's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the position. And again, going back to in fantasy, it's not about what a great NFL player they are. I still, if I'm an owner, one of the first 2 or 3 guys you want to have calling the snaps this year. In fantasy, though, he's probably not in the top 15.
All right, let's do the tiers for running backs. And this is what I put up there. Tier 1 has got Robinson, Gibbs, Barkley, and the chain. My tier 2 is Genty, Henry, and I put McCaffrey in there, but I put like a question mark. You don't see it on my screen, but I kind of put a question mark there. And then I love Bucky Irving. I love Bucky Irving and Chase Brown I put in that group. A lot of running backs in there. I think that the running back position, again, it's how you feel about this when you draft. But I think you've got to have, if you can get 2 of those guys, oh my God, you're set. But if you have to at least get 1 of those guys. At least that's the way I look at it.
I'm with you 100%.
If I'm not doing 0 running back, which means you wait, I've got to get 1 of those guys.
You've got depth towards the top. And for me, when I was building my tiers, you know, I've moved Kenneth Walker significantly down from what I had originally. Now that I've seen training camp, he's not healthy again. They're talking about,
Charbonneau, man. That's the guy.
Oh, you got to have both. If you're going to take one, you got to have the other. So I think the top of the tier, again, I think we're not really breaking news here.
No.
Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, Devin Achin. I would include Genty and Henry. I would actually go 6 deep in my top tier. I mean, Derrick Henry is a proven fantasy commodity. Yeah. He gets overlooked every year. Don't overlook this guy. They're going to feed him the ball. He's going to have big yards. He doesn't catch the ball, so you're not going to get a lot of PPR stuff in those type of formats, but you can depend on the offense that he provides. And I think Genty, I'm going to use him in my top tier. All reports out of Las Vegas are this guy's a bell cow. And that is rare for a rookie to be given the keys to be the bell cow in an offense, but we know right away that's that guy. My second tier is going to be a little smaller. I'm going to use CMC, obviously. I have to use my guy, Chase Brown. And then the one that I'm moving up now in my draft boards is Kyron Williams. There was question marks as to, okay, where's this going to be? He's the same guy he was last year.
Yeah.
What's going to change? They don't have anybody else to give the ball to out of the backfield. And with Stafford now already dealing with a back injury, they're going to be more conservative when they get in the red zone. So I would move Kyron up. And then after that, you still have another tier of players that I love. James Conner, Chuba Hubbard. These are reliable players in my third tier. Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor to a degree, Bucky Irving. These are go-to guys still. So yes, if you're going to go 0 running back and you want to wait even longer and maybe skip the first 2 tiers, that third and fourth tier, you're still going to get good football players. Even the 2 Viking guys, if you go down to a tier 4, are still going to be available and they're going to score.
Yeah. I mean, it is a deep position for fantasy football.
It's crazy.
Maybe deeper than most people would realize. But if you look at it closely, you're right. There's a number of guys. Even if you wait, there are a number of guys that you can get that will help your team. All right, here's my receiver look. Tier 1. Again, we're not breaking news here. Chase, Jefferson, and Lamb. Nakua, Neighbors, and St. Brown in tier 2. A.J. Brown, and I'm not a big Eagles receiver guy. So
they don't throw it enough. 43% last year, lowest in the league.
But I put him in there. I even have questions about Collins too, and how healthy, how well they're going to throw the football in Houston. I love Drake London. I love Drake. I love Atlanta's offense. So much so, if you looked at my Empire team that you and
You've
I
got
are in,
multiple.
I've got Penix, I've got Bijan, and I got Drake London. You know what? That wasn't my intention.
Just fell that way.
It's just how it fell. But I do love Drake London. So that's my tier of receivers.
Well, I think the Chase, Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and I'll include Puka Nacua. Those top 4 are pretty hard to argue against. The one thing I'll say about Puka Nacua is you got to monitor the health of Stafford. And he's a gritty, tough guy. The fact that he was supposed to practice this week and he hasn't made it back on the field, it's one to monitor for sure. And if you can get CeeDee Lamb instead of Puka Nacua, I would go that direction for certain. That next tier for me has to include Brian Thomas Jr. He is probably the most talented receiver on the board that nobody is talking about. Nobody's talking about Brian Thomas Jr. That offense is going to be better than they were last year. As a rookie receiver, he blew up last year. And so you can bank on double-digit touchdowns. He for sure is in my second tier. A.J. Brown is not. And now with the injury to the offensive lineman for the Chargers, Ladd McConkey, who I was bullish on as recent as 10 days ago, I'm moving way down. I'm really worried about how the Chargers can approach their offensive attack with their best offensive lineman down. Mr. Alt now is going to have to get shuffled around. And so I'm moving him down probably to my third tier. And I'm also with you. I'm a little leery of Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown only because of the game script. And they run the ball so much. Right. I still think that if you get to that second tier and you've got a Brian Thomas and you've got a T. Higgins and you've got proven commodities like Jackson Smith and Jigba, another guy that kind of falls through the crack in these drafts. And I've been able to pounce on him.
I agree with you, but Seattle worries me. Sam Darnold, that whole situation. I'm a wait and see on that. understand the attraction to taking the Seattle receiver, but the Seattle's offense to me right now, with Charbonneau likely going to be in there playing a lot more at the running back spot, and just not knowing exactly what that looks like.
I'm with you because the Cooper
me.
Kupp thing worries me because Jackson Smith and Jigma is a slot guy.
Yep.
Cooper Kupp's a slot guy. Something's got to give here. And I thought the whole signing of Cooper Kupp and the timing of it was really strange. And the other thing I worry about, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to draft. I've got shares of Jackson already,
right.
But it's a copycat league. And at the end of the year, teams started to figure out Sam Darnold. When you brought the heat, his numbers went down significantly. And that's something that Seattle's going to have to deal with.
All right, last position is tight end, and this is my tier. Tier 1 is only Brock Bowers. I know you love McBride.
I do.
Brock Bowers to me is, I will take him in the first round if I can get to him, without a question. McBride and Kittle are in my second tier, and Laporta and Hawkinson in my third. And to be honest with you, if I don't get Bowers or McBride, I likely will sit and wait, even though I'll pass up Laporta and Hawkinson. If I can get them in round 7 or later, that's a bonus. That's a plus. But if I can't get one of those first two guys in one of the first 2 rounds of my draft, I'm waiting at tight end. How about you?
Top 2 for me. And I'll put Bowers 1 with a bullet. He's the guy you want if you can get him. But I'll include McBride because of opportunities in Arizona. He is the red zone guy. He's going to get so many targets this year. But if I don't get one of those 2 guys, I'm not moving up and wasting an early pick on Kittle, Laporta, or Hawkinson. Some are. I am not. And there's lots of reasons. With Hawkinson, there are a lot of weapons in this offense, and he's one of them, but he's not the fixture. He's not the go-to guy. Justin Jefferson in the red zone still gets the ball. Even inside the 5-yard line, they throw to JJ. Laporta, again, too many weapons. Gibbs in the red zone. You got great receivers with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson. There's just too many cooks in that kitchen. And as good as Kittle is, 3 straight years he hasn't played an entire season. The injuries are starting to pile up. They're using him more as a blocking tight end. So I want Bowers or McBride, my tier 1. That tier 2, I can take it 6-8 deep. I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And the guy that I'm waiting for is a rookie that plays in Indianapolis, and I can get him, rounds 9, 10, or 11, and I'm totally fine with it.
Would you wait until almost near the end of the draft to take a tight end?
I'll keep an eye on where the guys start to go because you can't just look for one guy. And for me, if I don't get those top 2, I'll include a handful of guys that I'm okay with. I'm going to buy some shares of Chiggy in Tennessee. I think this kid is sitting on a year where he can move out and have a great year.
Cam Ward looked pretty good.
And I think Cam Ward's a guy that people are underestimating. I really do.
Yep.
And then the other young guy I like is Brenton Strange out of Jacksonville.
I do too. I love him.
This kid is going to be the red zone guy for a football team that struggles to run the ball inside the 10-yard line. I like him a lot. And so if I can get Chiggy, Brenton Strange or Tyler Warren, and I'm all over Tyler Warren, I'll wait and take one of those young guys as opposed to forcing a Kittle or a Hawkinson early because you mentioned it. I want some depth at running back. You can use these players at flex positions now. I want to have 2 or 3 good backs.
All right. Last thing we're going to do before we run here is I'm going to look at my draft from the Talk North draft last week, and I'm going to pick 2 guys that I think are sneaky picks that I chose. One of them is Jerome Ford, who I think with the situation with Judkins in Cleveland, I know Dylan Sampson's there. He's going to get a little bit of playing time, but I think Jerome Ford, first of all, let me just say this off the top. Cleveland sucks. They're not going to be very good, but somebody's got to run the ball for him. Somebody's got to score for him. So that for me, I took Jerome Ford in like round 10 or round 11 just to give me some running back depth. I like that pick. My second one is my last pick, which is Jaden Blue for Dallas. I think the Dallas running back situation is going to be something that's going to be in flux all year long. And there's been this conversation that Blue has been a little bit lazy in his preparation for camp and in camp. Hopefully that all changes. But I took him as my very last pick, hoping that would be one of, at the end of your drafts, if you're not taking chances on players, you're making a mistake.
I agree.
Right?
I totally
You're
agree.
making a mistake. Don't take the veteran who maybe played, 50% of the snaps or 40% of the snaps during the season for a team. Don't do that. Take a chance, take a shot on a rookie, someone that if the dominoes fall the way you think they might, he might be the guy. It may not be until week 5 or week 6 or week 7. You got to have patience, but those are kind of my two guys that I felt pretty good about when I walked away from.
Well, I made 2 moves, and one was a waiver wire move, and one was at the end of the draft where I took a real swing. I'll start with the real swing. Remember the name Isaac Tesla, a young kid playing in Detroit where they throw the ball an awful lot. This is a kid that has the potential to be a blow-up type of player. It's not going to happen early in the season. If you watch their preseason game, he looked unbelievable, had a touchdown, has good hands. He reminds me a lot of an early career Adam Thielen. He plays a lot like Thielen. The routes are solid. The connection that he's making with his quarterbacks in camp has been great. He's got a ton of upside. And then to your point, when you make a mistake in the draft, don't be too proud to go back and rectify it. I have Kyler Murray as my starter. I don't love Kyler Murray. I think he's okay. I think he's safe. I had a safe backup. And I can't remember which veteran it was, but I looked at my roster. I'm like, I don't have anything there where if Kyler Murray doesn't work out, I need something. Cam Ward went undrafted. So I dropped the Miami running back that our astute intern Will picked up to get Cam Ward. And I really want to have
That's an interesting decision.
some pop at that position. Yeah. And Kyler Murray to me, he kind of fell to me. And I'm like, at that point in the draft, I didn't love anybody else. But to me, there isn't a great deal of upside with Kyler Murray. He's going to be in that 8 to 15 range every week, points for a quarterback. I want a guy that can blow up. And Cam Ward was the guy that I isolated. So between him and Tesla, the wide receiver in Detroit, if you're drafting soon, late in the draft, rather than take the worn-out veteran who it doesn't have any upside, take a guy that at least has the potential by week 4 or 5 to blow up.
And the key to that is having patience, because I know how I get, and I'm sure how you get. Week 1 finishes, and
freaking out.
Some guy goes off in week 1 that nobody's got on their roster, and you start making moves, and you maybe give up on a guy like that who didn't play week 1. You got to have, it's great to go grab the guy before somebody else does. I get that, but it's also sometimes the best moves are the moves you don't make. Right?
For sure.
Sometimes that's the best moves are the moves that I showed patience, I waited, and hopefully that guy will produce for me down the road. All right. Thanks for watching. Next week, we're going to talk about the middle rounds of your draft, what you should be thinking about and looking at, like rounds 5 through like 12, which is where you really kind of win your leagues, win your draft, is players in that middle. And then also next week, besides camp news, which we will discuss, I think Kevin's going to give us your can't miss player of the season. This is the guy that
got a guy
that Gorg has. He just can't stop thinking about.
I got 2.
I know he does, but he's going to give us one.
Right.
That's going to be on our show next week.
Can't wait. And good luck with all your drafts. This is a huge weekend.
Yep.
Use your resources well. Go to that tip sheet at talknorth.com. Use that draft board as one of the, again, you don't have to just use our opinions. Bounce them off the others that you respect in the game. And to Randy's point, patience, patience, patience. Don't panic on draft night. You'll be just fine.
And the last thing is, know the rules of your league. Know the rules, read the rules, and understand them so that you make good choices in your draft. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.